Good afternoon and welcome to FHCA's webinar, Attitudes, Smatitudes, Who's in Charge Anyway, Creating a Gold Quality Leadership Team. I'm Kristen Knapp, Senior Director of Communications and Strategy for Florida Healthcare Association and your moderator for today. And our presenter is Debbie Brazill, Administrator and owner of the Villages Rehabilitation and Nursing Center. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items to help our program run smoothly for you. We want to remind you that all attendees are muted due to the large number of participants. We encourage you to use the computer audio rather than the telephone to maintain sound quality for today's presentation. And we encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation by typing your questions into the question box. And the slide you see now shows you how to do that by submitting a question into the question box. The webinar is being recorded and an online archive will be available on the FHCA website along with any additional handout materials. And we are also posting this on the Florida Care for the Aging website, which is our Caregivers Florida grant website. Please encourage anyone to view that recorded webinar on those pages. Today's program is brought to you by the Caregivers Florida Career Program, which is the CMS-funded grant that FHCA's Education and Development Foundation is sponsoring in partnership with the State of Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration. If your facility is not already signed up, you can do that through the website that you see here, or you can send me an email. This gives you access to connections with job seekers, job postings, and recruitment tools. And it also gives you access to the use of an employee satisfaction survey. And between now and December 16th, our participating providers are sharing that survey with their employees and using the resources we provided to communicate about and promote the participation in that survey among their team members. So if you are a participating provider, this is just your reminder to please share that survey link and encourage your employees to sign up and participate. After the survey closes, we're going to compile the data to provide to each of those facilities to help them inform their workforce engagement activities. And then we'll take that statewide data to inform our programming for the upcoming year. Now we're ready to get started with our program. So I'll turn it over to Debbie Brazill.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Kristen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, so this is a momentary disclaimer. I have never did this presentation without a live audience. So if you have any questions or feedback, please sure to put it in the chat box. And with no further ado, we will start. So creating a gold quality leadership team. There we go. Okay, I can move the slides now. And these two quotes, no one can whistle a symphony. It takes a whole orchestra to play it. And a leader must inspire or his team will expire. I truly believe that a leader is somebody who motivates, who supports, who's there to answer questions and provide supplies. They're not there to micromanage or to tell anybody really what to do. You can teach and you can mentor, but not tell them what to do. The Great Resignation. It's been tough out there. 1 in 5 healthcare workers have quit their jobs since February 2020. Of those who stayed, 30% are considering leaving. The healthcare industry is paying $24 billion more per year for labor than it did pre-pandemically. And overtime hours are up 52%, and agency labor is up 132%. So why is this? Why do you think healthcare has been affected more than anything? Of course, the pandemic, the fears that are out there has really affected healthcare. But another thing that we have that is conflict. There's a lot of conflict in facilities. There's a lot of conflict everywhere, especially right now. But you know, anybody who's worked in a company has witnessed organizational conflicts of some kind and realized that these conflicts that really damage the work environment. It's clear to all that even relatively minor conflicts are damaging and lead to workplace issues such as office politics, miscommunication, employee frustration. The minor conflicts lead to bigger conflicts such as like poor teamwork, bad decision-making, turnover, lots of turnover. How many times do we find that employees are quitting because they are running away from, they had a problem with this employee or with that employee, and that results in damage, of course, to the patients because there's not consistency in staff, and other coworkers because they're missing their coworker. And you also risk, if that coworker goes and finds a home where there's not as much conflict, that they might go to that other facility. Sometimes we accept these conflicts as just part of the job or part of women working with women or part of healthcare, but it doesn't have to be. You can have a more serene work environment. And we usually invest little in trying to resolve these conflicts because we tend to view them as inevitable and they just need to get along and they just need to grow up. But we have to give them the tools and the resources in order to solve these conflicts and in order to look at life in general better. They will be happier overall. And when somebody is happier overall, they also are happier with their life, with their job, with their work, with their coworkers, with their patients, with their assignment. And with, they'll stay and they'll be more productive employee. You realize that conflict costs a lot of money because it costs a lot of money to us with it results in a slowdown of work because they're busy bickering with each other. They won't help each other, lack of teamwork, and then it ultimately will result in turnover. So the key to being a great leader is understanding what your people want and expect from you and why they want it. When leading your team to a shared goal and vision, they need to understand that not only what they need to do, but why they are doing it, so they can see how they personally benefit. To set and imagine and manage people's expectations and create alignment in thinking and actions requires understanding people's why, who they are, and what their intentions are. If you want to transform your organization, it starts with transforming your people. And in order to do so, you have to also understand your why and why they want to be transformed in the first place in the person that they want to become. You have to create a shared vision and direction, and you got to seek to understand and respect everyone's why, including your own. You got to really kind of dig deep and find out, why are you here? Is this, where you want to be? Can you find joy? I see, and I don't know if I have mostly administrators on the line, but I'm sure there are frustrations with other departments, but I'm on the Facebook Florida Administrators group, and I see a lot of frustrated people, a lot of frustrations and I think that's in not looking at things and really the only thing you can control are your own reactions and your own actions. So this will help you to do that. So how do you do that? How do you listen to your employees and get to know your employees? You want to build those relationships. You want to find something that you truly like about them. I always tell everybody around me that the best, if I don't like somebody, it's because I don't know them. Anytime I get to know somebody, I always find something that I like about them. People want to do good. They don't get out of bed and say, today I'm going to do a really bad job at the facility. Today I'm not going to change people. I'm not going to turn people. I'm not going to feed them. And I'm not going to, they don't come to work because of that. People want to do good in life and they want to be recognized for the good that they do. So this is the pyramid of influence. So this I have all over the facility, and this is how we work with our employees. And we do not write people up. I can't even remember the last time that I wrote somebody up. And we start at the bottom and you work your way up. So first of all, you start with yourself and you improve your way of being. You make sure that you have what's called kind of a heart of peace, that you can't talk to an employee, you can't help anybody else until you help yourself. If you're bristling and your blood pressure is up and your pulse rate is up and your face is red, you're not going to be effective at helping anybody else. If you don't have a relationship with the employee, then you're going to build relationships with the others who have influence over that employee or with that employee. So you try to enter their inner circle. Maybe there's trust issues. Maybe they don't feel like they can They want to be close to you, or they want to talk to you, or they want to open up to you. And next, you build that relationship with them and you listen and learn and you teach and communicate. Very seldom do you get to the top to correct. Now, if teaching and communicating isn't working, then my leadership team and all know that they need to go to listening and learning. You always go to the next level down in order to solve the problem. And this is everything, all conflict, employees that are late, employees that are arguing, employees that are refusing assignment. You talk to them, you teach, you listen and learn, you build that relationship. All our employees at the facility are required to read a book. Depending on where they are, some of them want to read more books. So these are the 3 books. I do a lot of leadership training and a lot of training with all the staff at the facility. And this is by the Arbinger Group, and they're called Leadership and Self-Deception, The Anatomy of Peace, and The Outward Mindset. And we're going to talk about some of the ideas that are in these books. So the concepts, being in the box. So when you're in the box, you're decorating this box, and it's you see others distorted way as a source of their problem. People that are in the box sees themselves as the center of the world and others as mere objects whose needs are secondary and less legitimate than their own. If you walk into our facility, you'll hear a lot of people telling others jokingly, you better get out of that box, or I'm in the box today and I'm going to stay there. And luckily they're recognizing that today they're in an attitude. They're feeling self-pity, they're feeling some self-doubt. And of course, when they're in the box, that's when all of us should give them some empathy and find out, well, what's going on with your day? How can we help you? Because when you're in the box, you blame others and you find faults with whatever others do or say. Somebody who's in the box, his needs come before anybody else's. And you face issues such as lack of commitment, lack of engagement, poor teamwork, backbiting, lack of trust. Being in the box limits our ability to reach our full potential and betrays the basic obligation that we have to see others as they are, as people. So as we go through, we're going to learn more about what being in the box is like, and then how can we get out of that box. Treating people like people. So I've got a quick story for you. So Marty was a gentleman who he was lying in bed, wrapped in the comfort of a deep sleep. He was a young, ambitious businessman concerned about his career ladder and preoccupied most of the time with corporate assignments. As he slept, his 4-month-old baby began to cry in the nursery just off the master bedroom. Marty roused, lifted his head, and looked at the clock. 2:30 a.m. His wife, Carolyn, lying next to him, wasn't stirring. And Marty said, "At that moment, I had a fleeting feeling, a feeling that if I got up quickly, I might be able to see what was wrong before my wife would have to wake up. I don't think it was even a thought because it went fast for me to say, too fast for me to say it out in my mind. It was a feeling that this was something I really ought to do. But I didn't do it. I didn't go right back to sleep either. It bugged me that my wife wasn't waking up. I kept thinking it was her job. She has her work and I have mine. Mine starts early. She can sleep in. Besides, I was exhausted. Besides that, I never really know how to handle the baby. Maybe she was lying there waiting for me to get up. Why did I have to feel guilty when I'm only trying to get some sleep so I can do well on the job? She was the one who wanted to have this kid in the first place." So as you can see, so that is, what did the wife do? The wife didn't do anything. The wife was still laying there in bed asleep. I find myself sometimes doing this with my husband, who was a stay-at-home dad. And you come home and the house is a mess and the garbage isn't taken out and the dishes aren't done. But so you start complaining, you start getting irritated, but you don't ask, well, honey, how was your day? What happened today? Maybe he had just as bad of a day as you did, or worse even, carting 3 kids around along with all their friends and everything else. And so we have to learn that other people have needs and other people. So this was a self-deception process. So it's a process of rationalizing away the relevance or the significance or the importance of what his day was. you know, any logical argument could say that when I talked to him, he could tell me what exactly was happening with his day, but I was jumping to conclusions before, as Marty was doing, when he was just assuming that maybe his wife was just laying there wanting him to get up and deal with the baby. And his wife was just sleeping, but in the end, he was really talking how badly she was, how badly she, for not even getting up, and she didn't even know she needed to get up. So self-deception involves convincing oneself of a truth or lack of truth so that one does not reveal any self-knowledge of the deception. Blame. So blaming others and making it seem that we're doing our best in spite of them is the way that we betray ourselves. So Marty was blaming his wife because he didn't want to get out of bed, when really it was him. He had to own his own emotions, and emotions are always involved with blame. And blame always begets blame. How many times you have somebody come to your office and say, well, she said this and she said that and she did this and she did that. It's always the other person's fault. But blame always begets blame. So what happens 10 minutes later? The person she was just talking about comes to your office and says the same thing. And then as soon as they start talking about each other, it leads to collusion. So collusion means that they're both talking about the other one, and they're looking for reasons. So if one of them says that, if CNA 1 says that CNA 2 is rude and inconsiderate, then everything that CNA 2 does is going to look rude and inconsiderate to CNA 1, even if it's not. And so collusion is a funny thing. Back in 1969 or so, there was a study where a psychologist put other coworkers, other providers, psychologists and psychiatrists, and had them go to a mental institution. So when they went to the door of the mental institution, they said that they were hearing voices, one voice, and that their voice told them 2 words. That's all they said. Otherwise, they acted perfectly normal. And they went to see if they would be admitted into the psychiatric hospitals. Well, every single encounter resulted in a direct admission with a diagnosis of schizophrenia. When they were admitted into the hospitals, and after you read the notes, and they were told to act perfectly normal, and they did, they acted their normal self, but everything they did, including their note-taking, the notes from the doctors and the nurses related it to their schizophrenic diagnosis, of which they didn't really have. So everything that they looked for was through the eyes and through the filter of schizophrenia. So when we label somebody, we then look for those characteristics in that person, even if those characteristics aren't valid. We are always many things at many times, so we can be both rude and polite at the same time to different people, depending on how they're looking at it and what filters they're looking at it through. So collusion is that we're not responsible for what's going on because we're helpless in the face of what they are doing. It is when others' behaviors offend us, we are finding it in a justification or excuse for our own wrongdoing. So when Marty was blaming his wife for not getting up to go get the baby, he was doing that because he didn't want to get the baby. He didn't want to get up. So he's making justifications for why he's not getting up now to do it. There's a difference between the person who cares and the person who's making an effort to make it appear that he cares. And believe me, your staff know that, you know when somebody really doesn't care but are trying to make it look like they do. Both are suffering, and their wrongdoing gives us proof that they are wrong and we are right. Each person believes the problem would go away if only the other would change or quit or be fired. So everyone is producing the problem together. Seeing that person as the problem is the problem. So A is attacking me, So B is attacking. So A is coming to you saying that B is attacking me. B is coming to you saying A is attacking me. And they're both saying they're only doing their best to cope with them. What is that? That's victim, right? They're acting like the victim. They're not taking responsibility for their feelings and emotions and their actions. False morality. One of the most dominant, almost unexamined fictions is that we are not responsible for our emotions. How many times has somebody come to you and say, she is making me so angry. I can't believe this person. This person just pushes my buttons. But it's not true. You can choose to be angry, or you can choose to react with another emotion, or you can choose not to react. We have a choice as to what we're going to do. The person whose conscience is distorted concerns himself about justification and excuse rather than about doing what love and integrity dictate. So I always say some people, you have some people who come into the room and are constantly complaining about their husband, for example. So they're coming in complaining about their husband, but they seem to enjoy that conflict because every day they have something to talk about. They have something to complain about. They're complaining about their husband. So even though they're complaining, they actually, that's been their role. That's been their it's hard to break that habit and that pattern. So good people can do cruel things and feel certain that the rules of conduct justify them. That saying, I don't give respect until I get respect. No, that's not right. So we have to all teach our employees and give them these skills that they don't have to react when something happens to them. When they feel like they've been disrespected, they react with questions, with empathy, and with curiosity, and not with anger. In many situations, when being right means much more than doing the right thing. So once one of your employees, or once you label somebody, oh, that girl is lazy, then everything she does in your light is going to make them look lazy. And you're going to talk about everything that looks even remotely like it could be justification that she's lazy. And that's because being right is much more than doing the right thing. So the moral dilemma. If we expressed or act our emotions openly, we think, be honest, but run the risk of hurting the feelings of those we accuse. If we control ourselves, we think, be kinder, but not candid. Our choice is either to be deceitful or inconsiderate. Whichever way we go will be wrong. But since the other person put us in this situation, whichever way we go, it is not our fault. But is it? See, that's not true. It is our fault because we have a choice. We don't have two choices. We have multiple choices. When it says our choice is either to be deceitful or inconsiderate, that's not true. We can be curious. We can be empathetic. We can be just be nice. We can do all kinds of things. We have many other choices. When we are self-deceived, we are obsessed with ourselves. We have little sensitivity for other people. We're far too insecure to love freely and unconditionally. Other people respond to us in ways that we read their responses to confirm our fears and anxieties, which is our chosen response. This kind of reminds me of, and I'm going to date myself here, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So Mr. Rogers always loved people and puppets freely and unconditionally. And he made people feel very secure by doing that, even people who do not feel secure within themselves. So as long as you treat people and you show them, he had a little puppet that he always used. His name was Daniel. And Daniel would always talk. And after conversing with somebody for a couple of minutes, the next thing he would always say is, I really like you. I really like him. And he would turn around and say to Mr. Rogers, I really like him. And being liked is one of the most important things that our employees want to know and want to do. They want to know that somebody genuinely cares for them and that you really do like them. So personal unconscious bias. Unconscious biases or implicit biases are attitudes that are held subconsciously and affect the way individuals feel and think about others around them. Subconscious attitudes aren't necessarily as well formed as coherent thoughts, but they can be very ingrained. Many people have unconscious biases that have been with them since childhood, which they absorb by observing their social, familiar, institutional environments. Unconscious biases can color the emotional and rational responses of individuals in everyday situations and affect their behavior. So unconscious biases are things that are from your childhood or things that are around you, things that you aren't necessarily aware of. Now, everybody has them, every single body, every person. And it's important that you recognize that you do have them. That when you think, oh, this kind of group, they always act this way, or this kind of group, they always act that way. That is a social bias, or biases with, oh, you always have to push the CNAs or they'll walk all over you. And that's such a falsehood. You don't have to be hard and staunch. And I know the name of this course is Attitude, Smatitude, Who's in Charge Anyway? And that's a good question, because it's not somebody who's in charge, but it's all of us working together to take the best care of the patients that we possibly can do. So that empowers the rest of the staff to know that they're also responsible, that they're also in charge, that they also have a dog in this fight, so to speak. Liberation. So how do we stop? How do we change this? How do we do something different? Anything we are doing is within our control to stop. Abandoning them is simply a matter of stop doing it. And yes, that's easier said than done, I understand. So a person who's out of the box sees others as people, as a person who has feelings, hopes, fears, and needs, places his needs and the needs of others on the same level, is a good communicator, tries to motivate people around, and can deliver even the hardest messages without any ill feelings. It's important. I know conflict is very, very difficult. And the way you can get around conflict is I don't have conflict. I just have a conversation. We just talk about it. You start out, and even the toughest things, even if I have to, talk to somebody about, listen, we have a problem. I always start out with, how are they doing? How is your day going? What's home life like for you these days? What, how's the son? How's the daughter? Did you, and I know a lot about my employees. So did you, are you still in the apartment? Or, did you get the leak fixed? And then we start into, okay, so we have a problem. Let's see, you tell me how we need to fix this. What do we need to do? And we do it together. I make them part of the solution. A person out of the box creates an environment of openness, trust, and teamwork where people work hard, put in effort for the collective good of the group and not for individual accomplishments. When insecurity and desperation are gone, we see another human being in trouble. Our hearts go out to them. When compassion enters, fear departs. We are compassionate. We matter-of-factly expect others to do what they themselves know is right and to perform up to their ability. And we genuinely desire to help them be the best self they can be. The most powerful incentive is the opportunity to grow in an atmosphere free from accusing attitudes and evasion. So Celia, this is Celia's story. My husband and I are both writers. We have a baby. Sean insists without sympathy that I keep the house clean, prepare the meals, and most of all, keep the baby absolutely quiet during his writing hours. I write during the baby's afternoon nap if I can, but usually late at night and early in the morning. If there's any noise from the baby, Sean is not patient. He bitingly asks whether I understand the importance of what he is writing or its crucial place in his career or what it means for our future. Until recently, tears would well up in my eyes in response to this harshness. Sometimes I would protest that he had no right to speak rudely to me, and quarrel would ensue. But more often, I would suffer the sharpness silently and bitterly. I could not understand why I had to suffer when I had done nothing wrong. One morning, I was doing an assignment on collusion, writing a case. I left the bedroom door ajar, and the baby toddled out. She was scattering some of Sean's pages. When he saw her, he began to yell at me. Immediately, I felt attacked. I began to burn with resentment and to search my mind for some way I could respond in kind. But all of a sudden, I thought, he is hurting. He's anxious. He's worried about his job. He's worried about supporting his family. And my rage just melted. I was filled with compassion towards Sean for the first time in a long time. In fact, all I could think of in that moment was how could I help my husband? So before Celia yielded to the real situation, she saw Sean as a person who was hurting her. That perception, hers, was not the truth. It was a message from him, a message to say, I'm not able to deal with the pressure that is on me to do what I need to do. She did not see him hurting her. She no longer, after a while, looking at him with no accusing feelings. She saw in Sean a person who was hurting, someone she loved and needed her help. And did Sean change during that time period? He did not. Her perception of him changed. And we're all able to change our perception of each other. We're able to perceive others as betraying themselves and even acting maliciously. But then we don't take offense at it because it's not taken personally. It's not geared towards us. It's a message to us. We have two different ways of being, two different ways that we can work with our employees, that we can mentor, that we can empower, that we can motivate. We can have a heart at war, or we can have a heart at peace. You know, when your heart at war is when you go out there and you're just, oh my gosh, there's linen on the floor, there's a garbage bag here, the call lights are going, the staff are sitting, what is going on here? And your heart rate starts racing and you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna blow. But if you look at it another way, a heart at peace, so you go talk to them at the table and say, hey, what happened this morning? Are you guys, did you have a rough morning? Are you worn out? What happened? Maybe they're all just sat down and they're regrouping and they're trying to figure out a better way that they can handle things. And so you can, come on, let's go. I can help you. Let me help you do this. Let me help you do that. I'll help you make that bed. Let's pick up this linen. And then you do it together. So their concerns and their cares matter the same as my own. And I respond to them in a humane way as humanity. So we do have other things that we do at the facility. We do self-scheduling, which means we have a couple of rules. They have to work 4 weekend days out of 4 weeks. But they can schedule whatever they want. Then I have a large meeting with each 7 to 3 nurses, and they all come to the meeting, and then we say, okay, I have too many nurses on Tuesday and not enough on Wednesday. I put the schedule up on the big screen, and somebody takes one day off and works the other day and fills in all my holes for me before we finish the schedule. We always do it 4 weeks in advance, and we do the holidays right. So the middle of Thanksgiving, I did all the way through until the first week of January, so that they could make their holiday plans. And we also did it as a group together. So there was nobody saying, oh, well, she got Christmas off and I want Christmas off. And she got, a lot of times there's a lot of give and take in those meetings. And we have some younger nurses and we have a lot of older nurses that will work those days for the Christmas. And the rule is for us is that if you work Christmas last year, you get Christmas off this year automatically, but you can give it up, of course, for somebody else. And if you want to, you can. If you don't have to. We are also a holacracy, so we don't have silos. If a CNA has a problem, they can go to the dietary manager, the housekeeping supervisor, the therapy director, anybody they want to, and anybody will help them. No matter who they talk to. They don't have to go through a chain of command. It's a flattened hierarchy. We have levels. The raises are based on the completion of levels. So levels 1 through 5, the first level is very basic come to work on time every single day, do your charting. And we have them for every department, every position in the facility. And level 5, of course, is to mentor a group for one of the books. And and then their group has to take a test, and that determines if they have a 5-star. They have badges so that the wage is completely transparent. So if you are CNA with 2 stars on your badge, everybody knows what you make, because everybody with 2 stars on their badge makes the exact same thing. You fix problems with systems. There's usually a system issue to blame, and a permanent fix to a system is never education. So we don't place blame. We don't say, oh, well, you know, that nurse just did this right, then that would have been okay. No, we have a problem and we have to fix it within the system. Everybody gets a personalized birthday card for every employee completed by me. We also have huddle ups for each neighborhood, department managers, each department, and everybody ends their huddle ups with your good in your hood and neighborhood shout outs. So everybody goes around the room and writes on a little piece of paper and talks about it. And then we post those little pieces of paper. They're very colorful up on a bulletin board so everybody can read when they get a shout out. We also go and tell them that they got a shout out. We also have a Liberty Fund. So the Liberty Fund is any CNA, nurse, housekeeper, diet aide can spend $25 on a resident anytime, anywhere, without asking their supervisor. They just, so the night shift usually uses lotions and potions and all kinds of things on their patients. And I don't want them to spend their own money. If they want to buy for a patient, then go ahead and do it. We will reimburse them, and they just bring us the receipt and we'll buy what they need for that patient. We'll reimburse them for that patient. We also have TGIAF. Thank God it's almost Friday, which is every week we have an in-service. The in-service has all our mandatory in-services, but once a month I also have a self-improvement in-service. The self-improvement and once a month is also the medical director gives an in-service and gives a deep dive into and the different diagnoses. He answers questions for the staff, like for diabetes, congestive heart failure, COPD, anything, high blood pressure, anything that the staff have questions on. And he answers all of their questions before the end of the session. Also, the self-improvement in-service is the largest one. Everybody comes because we always have some very fun team building activities or fun self-actualization, or I use a lot of TED Talks along with an activity afterwards to help improve, just to grow their emotional intelligence. When people honor each other, there's a trust established that leads to synergy, interdependence, and deep respect. Both parties make decisions and choices based on what is right and what is best and what is valued most highly. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Debbie. Now we have an opportunity for folks. If you want to ask questions of Debbie, you can use the question and answer feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to take an opportunity to do that. I always appreciate Debbie in her presentations to us, always garner a lot of great ideas from you. So if you do have a question, you can add that into the Q&A chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Looks like we've got a quiet bunch, so maybe don't have a question. So with that, then I want to just remind everyone that the next webinar that let me hold on, getting ahead of myself here. Somebody, I've got here's a couple of questions. So let's go back. So here's a question related to your turnover rate, Debbie. Folks are wanting to know what your turnover rate looks like.
So right now it's at 55%.
And then another question that we have is some of your favorite TED Talks that you've shared with your team during one of your self-improvement in-services. If you have any of those you'd like to share.
Oh my goodness, there's been a lot of them. I can't give you any specifically, but I certainly can look in the archives. But there's a ton of TED Talks if you just type it in. My husband always knows that it's Wednesday because I'm at home listening to TED Talks in the evening. See which one is going to be best.
Okay, well, maybe if you have some and you want to email to me, I can send that out to the group if you think of something or if you have an archive.
Sure.
But and also I would also share in terms of books. Debbie mentioned some books. We've also got some good leadership books that we share with our Florida leaders that we can also put a list together and make that available on the handouts page as well for folks. So those are always some good quick reads. The Energy Bus is always a good one. That's an really easy read, but a very, I think always kind of a good motivational for team members, but it's a really quick book to read, not a difficult long read at all. So that looks like all of our questions. And
there's another one.
So here's someone asking how you enforce your staff and what their reaction is to reading books. How do you enforce that and what's their reaction?
So I also have I have the books on tape as well, so they can listen to them. Some of them there's met with enthusiasm and some are not so much so. We also so we won't do their yearly evaluation until they have read the first book. And so they have to read then.
Awesome. Good.
Okay.
Oh, and here's a recommendation: Executive Toughness by Jason Selk for leadership. Thank you for that, Christine.
Cool.
Appreciate it. All right. Okay, well, thank you all for chiming in with your questions and for participating today. Again, I want to remind you that the next webinar related to workforce that we have is on December 13th, and that is social media recruiting, moving beyond the job board. We're actually going to have our director of digital content with Saks Media, which is our public affairs firm, Ashley Perkins, join me on that to talk about how you can use social media for recruitment, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And even if you're not a PR pro, she's going to show you, we'll both show you some tips and tricks to make it easy. Folks are out there using social media for searching for jobs. So it's a great tool beyond just your typical job board. So that is December 13th. You can sign up at fhca.org. And then with that, I just want to remind you again, the recording of this webinar is available on the FHCA website. And we appreciate everyone for participating. Appreciate Debbie for sharing your thoughts. And with that, I will hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.